In the introductory episode of this series on automotive industry, we spoke about all the areas that I intend to cover from the OEM's point of view. And the first on the list is dealerships. All of you would have seen multiple automotive showrooms in your respective cities. Yes, the dealership plays a very important role in the overall distribution network of an OEM. I remember one legal matter that I had to handle earlier on in my career, which posed varied legal challenges in front of us as an organization, both on the criminal litigation front and on the civil front from the point of view of managing the future of dealership agreement and its fate and fixing certain responsibilities on the dealer. While I may not be able to discuss all details here, let's just say it involved exceeding the authority under a contract and committing certain breaches by the dealer and consequences of the same. It therefore is very important to have a comprehensive document which deals with the most critical commercial relationship on the sales and after sales service front for the OEM, that is dealership agreement. Hello friends, my name is Amol Apte and this is Lex Prudence podcast. As you are aware, we are starting with the new series on the automotive industry and trying to cover as many critical aspects or areas as we can from the OEM's point of view. If you have not heard earlier episodes, please do check them out on the Lex Prudence podcast on YouTube. In this episode, we are going to discuss certain important aspects that a lawyer, in house or otherwise, should pay attention to when he or she is preparing a dealership agreement. So let's just get straight into it. During the course of the next few minutes, we'll look at the following critical points. But mind you, we will only scratch the surface of each of these items on my list and not go into the minor details because that will take away quite a lot of time, and it's obviously practically not possible for me to discuss everything in minute details. So let's into it. The first and the foremost clause that you look at when you are drafting a dealership agreement is the relationship between you as an OEM and the dealer. Be clear if you want to have your dealer acting as your agent, or do you want to have principal to principal relationship. Keep in mind that agency agreement brings for far better control, but also brings with it the vicarious liability obligation. So you have to be clear in your mind as to what you want this relationship to be. On the other hand, the principal to principal may allow somewhat operational freedom to the dealer and take away vicarious liability related obligations to an extent, but the same may not allow you the adequate control over the operations or how dealership is managed. And therefore, at the beginning of the contract, you have to look at it from all angles and decide how you want the relationship to be. The second aspect is showroom and service center. As an OEM, you may want to have a certain level of standards of layouts, staff requirements, staff trainings, space management, necessary service equipment, service bay spaces, and whole lot of things to ensure that the standard of services or uh, the customer relationship for your organization is top notch. So make sure to have adequate guiding language in your contract and also the ability to prescribe additional guidelines from time to time. You may not want to amend the agreement every now and then, right? So you have to have that enabling language in your contract, which allows you to make changes to these guidelines from time to time. The third important aspect is sales and inventory. Now, I understand that a dealer should have the ability as well as the freedom to understand the sales potential and the resulting inventory requirements for his particular territory. However, I'm also aware that a lot of OEMs sales teams drive the sales in their respective territories, and as such, the agreement should provide adequate ability for an OEM to have say in the sales targets as well as the inventory requirements for a particular dealer. The fourth important, not exactly a clause, but fourth important subject that you need to cover in your agreement is after sales service, spares, and the related aspects. Now, the agreement needs to have a clear language and clauses to create adequate scope for the OEM to guide and define the service standards, guidance on quality of spares, requirements of continuous training for service staff on the product service, the policies of the organizations, product warranties, service station layouts, processes for warranty services, and scope for a dealer to take independent decisions on certain services within product warranty and such other related clauses, which make sure that the customers receive satisfactory after sales service, because that's what is going to define you as an organization in the market. The fifth important area is financial aspects. Now, the agreement needs to elaborately cover the aspects around security deposits that you take from a dealer, the ability to enhance or reduce that security deposit from time to time, depending on the business requirements, the credit period that you allow your dealer on the product ordered, the spare parts orders, or if there are any bank guarantees that are required to be given to back these credit periods, that needs to be defined very clearly. Or you also need to have clear language around credit lines that you are extending, debt arrangements that you may want to do with the dealer, uh, maybe working capital requirements, and if any support is being provided by the OEM, that needs to be captured, and the aspects related to vehicle finance, if at all that's going to be allowed by OEM, or OEM also is in business of auto finance, then you need to cover these kind of aspects also in your financial aspects in your dealership agreement. It will make sure that your financial relationship is smooth, and therefore it reduces the dispute possibilities in future. The sixth important aspect that I think is very, very important to be covered in the agreement for a dealer is customer outreach and grievance handling. Now, we know that a customer visits a showroom, and the dealer and dealer's staff is going to be your face as an organization. So the dealership agreement very carefully needs to spell out the aspects of how potential customers are to be handled and how customers are to be handled at the service stations. So it's at both levels, right? Somebody who is visiting your showroom and is a potential customer, where and at the same time somebody who is visiting your service station and is your existing customer. So the agreement needs to cover all the processes and policies that a dealer needs to. I'm not saying that the processes and policies are needed to be defined in the agreement itself, but the obligations that a dealer has on these fronts need to be captured very carefully in the agreement. Seventh aspect is accounts, audits, and reconciliations. Now, it is important to capture the payment cycles, credit periods, delayed payment interests, bank guarantees and handling of bank guarantees, the product commissions, the sales service incentives that you come up with from time to time, and all enabling language to introduce new slabs of commissions, new schemes for sales and service, etc. It is also important to capture the rights that OEM has to audit the accounts to the extent of their own business, so that you have that adequate deterrent created in your contract that you can audit the books at any point in time to make sure that everything is followed to the T. So that ability to audit needs to be created. Other than that ability to audit, you need to have certain languages to make sure that you reconcile your books of accounts from time to time and get sign off from both sides, so that you keep on closing all the issues on a regular basis and there are no past issues or the carry forward issues which are pending to be resolved. So a reconciliation mechanism that both parties will follow is a good practice to capture in the agreement. eighth important area in my mind is role of a dealer in product callbacks. These days you would have heard that a lot of companies have to call back their products for certain issues that they find out at a later date, and they want to change the parts or make sure that the parts are working fine and all those kind of things. You need to define, because a dealer is your on ground face, you need to define the role of a dealer in those kind of product callbacks also. The ninth important issue in this dealership agreement is dispute management. Now, while you need to have specific clauses to guide how a potential dispute between OEM dealer will be managed, it is all the more important to clearly spell out the role that dealer should play in handling a consumer or a third party dispute. He is the one who is dealing with third parties and consumers on ground. Since the dealership is the one which is making sales, providing services, uh, and the service related transactions, including managing the first level of consumer grievances on ground, it's very important that you make sure that your language covers the dealer's role in the third party disputes very, very clearly in your agreement. I don't think that dealer needs to stay out of it, even if it is a principal to principal relationship. At the end of the day, the sales have been made by dealer staff, the services are provided by the dealer staff, and therefore a consumer dispute has to have dealer's role in it for sure. You need to cover that language very carefully. The 10th important point that I want to discuss here is the termination and post termination actions. Obviously, any agreement that comes into play is bound to get terminated at some point in time. So you need to cover the extremely critical aspect of termination to clearly capture the rights with respect to termination as to who can terminate, how can it be terminated, in what circumstances the termination can happen, what sort of notice needs to be given for termination, when will a notice be considered as served under the agreement, and so on and so forth. Also, the post termination obligations need to be captured very, very carefully, because there are a lot of things that a dealer needs to do. There are a lot of things that an OEM will have to do post the parties have decided to part ways. And therefore, that language of termination clause and the post termination obligations or actions becomes very, very critical for you to be captured in the agreement. So, these are some of the most important clauses that, in my opinion, need to be captured in the agreement and have to be very carefully handled while you are drafting a dealership agreement. Again, this is just a suggestive list of clauses. This is not a comprehensive list by any means. A dealership agreement is much more about a lot of other things also. But I've tried to capture the most important aspects and not the clauses in this discussion. I may have, however, also want to point out that the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association, called as FADA, has done a lot of work in this area of dealership agreements and have come up with recommendations on what should a standard template dealership agreement should look like. I also know that some of the OEMs have started adopting this agreement either in full or in parts. And I have a few opinions on some of the suggestions made by FADA and would want to discuss those specific clauses and my opinions around those clauses in the next episode of Lex Prudence podcast, Automotive Industry Series. So, see you in the next episode. Till then, bye bye and take care. Hope you like this episode and the discussion around the dealership agreement. If you like it, please do let me know via your comments. If you have certain questions, do write into me. Till then, take care and bye.